legends. I am the Knight. I am Batman. I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
What the hell are you? I'm Batman.
I'm Batman, the phrase that is so well known that you instantly know who is saying it. And not just because his name is in the phrase, but because Batman is such a famous and well-known character that he is loved by everyone. However, the same is true for another character within the Batman mythos. Again, you instantly know that that is the Joker, arch nemesis of Batman. The Joker's laugh is his catchphrase, and he, like Batman, is so recognisable that you only need to hear a small clip of his dialogue/laugh to know that it is the Joker. And of course, the reason why these two characters remain so popular for so long is because of how consistent they are. Batman is a campy crusader/cardigan-wearing billionaire who beats up hardened criminals in tights. And the Joker is a very camp gangster/ex-hypnotist who loves money and painting over his mustache in white. But wait a minute, isn't Batman a mysterious vigilante who likes to fight crime when there are camera flashes for every single one of his punches, and is a billionaire weird guy during the day? And the Joker's an ex-Stone Cold mobster who fell into a vat of acid and then starts dancing around to Prince in a floppy hat. But hang on, wait a minute. Isn't Batman a political billionaire who is trained high in the mountains and decides to fight crime with all technology at his disposal in a scary and brutal manner? Whereas the Joker is a mysterious, possible ex-soldier who acts at random and seems to find the darkest of things funny. It does seem that the characters have changed a lot in the past 60 years on screen. Using Will Brooker's writings on Batman and Henry Jenkins' theory of fandom and participatory culture, I want to explore how and why the characters have changed over the years. First of all, I want to start off by saying I will be looking at three different versions of the characters on screen. I will be looking at the 1960s adaptation of the comics, the 1989 Batman film, and the Dark Knight trilogy, with a main focus on the second film in the trilogy, The Dark Knight itself. I will touch on other Batman properties throughout this piece, but I will be mainly focusing on those three versions of the characters. Now, to start off with, the 60s version of the character. Here we can see both Batman and the Joker being very toned down and kid-friendly versions of them, the characters from the comics. This is because it was a children's show primarily. Now, this was also in keeping with the comics of the time, and even in Will Brooker's description of the characters, it is a soft, grey costume, a shining cowl, very nice and friendly characteristics, with the Joker actually being funny and not killing anyone, just causing mishap. Now, if we move on to the Batman 89 version of the characters, we can see that they are very much different from the 60s characters, but also share some similarities with the characters. Batman works in the shadows a lot more, and is not as fun-quipping as he is in the 60s show. He is a much darker version of the characters. Look at this scene from the beginning of the film.
Kill me, man! Don't kill me! Don't kill me, man!
I'm not going to kill you. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Now compare this to the 60s version of the character.
You're lucky the dynamic duo will talk to you at all.
You there, Mr. Merrick of the Gotham City Times. Well, according to rumor, Batman, a transatlantic yacht approaching this city simply disappeared.
Nonsense. How can a yacht simply disappear?
Well, you mean it isn't true?
I stand on my answer, Mr. Merrick. Mr. Stanley of the Globe.
This yacht, I believe, belonged to the famous Big Ben distilleries.
That's right.
And isn't the firm's proprietor, Commodore Smithlap, bringing with him a fantastic new invention from the Big Ben's research laboratory?
Please, no more questions about that ship.
What about that exploding shark?
Doubtless an unfortunate animal who chanced to swallow a floating mine. I wouldn't worry about that either, Mr. Merrick. You there, Miss...
Comrade Katania Irenia Tatania Karenska Alisov. I am from the Moscow.
Both versions vastly different from each other. The 60s Batman happily standing in front of a camera for a press conference. The 89 Batman taking note that Vicky Vale has a camera and is taking photos of him. He later goes to retrieve the film so that there are no photos of him. However, in his writings about Batman, Will Brooker says the truth and reality are meaningless in relation to Batman. Discourse around the real Batman, the original Batman, the Batman faithful to the source, persists as a circulation to reinforced by fans, authors, artists, journalists, and editors. What Will Brooker is saying is that every single person in the world has their own interpretation of the character, meaning that one person can think this is the real Batman,
The Riddler. Question. Who's going to make the feathers fly and knock Batman and Robin out of
and
the
another
sky?
person might think this Batman is the real Batman.
Oh, really? Let's go.
Stop.
Now, let us look at the two Jokers of the two texts, the 60s Batman and the 89 Batman. First of all, the 60s Batman is a crazy style character who is weird and does a lot of strange things, but never really kills anyone. His sense of humour is also very funny, and his jokes are actually applicable and are found funny by the audience. Now, the 89 Batman is a much darker version of the character, yet is still funny and comical. He will kill someone, and yet again, he'll dance around in a floppy hat.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Now we move on to the Nolan era Batman, which Brooker describes as a brutal, militarised vigilante, and in a lot of ways he would be correct. This version of the Batman is a lot more brutal, unlike his previous version of the characters. Compare this to this.
Where are you? Here.
And also, the new version of the Joker is a lot more brutal as well. He does things because he finds them funny and has an awful, dark, brutal sense of humour, whereas the old Jokers would, well, dance around in a floppy hat. That's the last time I'll show the floppy hat dance, I swear. Now, let's have a look at Nolan's Joker.
How about a magic trick? I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. Ta-da! It's gone.
Now, in his blog about fandom going mainstream, Henry Jenkins talks about entries of fans into texts. He says, "There has been a dramatic expansion of the amount of fan fiction that is being produced. For example, with many newcomers entering the space not through social interaction with other fans, but rather reading fan fiction." Now, Jenkins is obviously talking about internet fanfiction in his post, but if we look at these films, we could say that they aren't in fact actual texts, but are, in a sense themselves, fanfiction, as the original appearance of Batman is not in the movies or the TV show, it is actually in the pages of DC Comics. So, from Henry Jenkins' texts, we can say that there are a culture of people who just follow the Batman films. However, Henry Jenkins would classify this as a subculture because Batman is not primarily an on-screen character, he is a comic book character, therefore the films are not his original medium, and so the subculture is not the comic books, even though they might have a lesser fan base, but the films he has appeared in. Now, before, when we went through the different versions of Batman and the Joker, you may have noticed a trend. Over time, it seems that both Batman and especially the Joker are shown as getting more and more darker and violent. Now, there is a reason for this. The subculture that Henry Jenkins describes over time will obviously get older, and as these fans get older, they will want to see a different version of the character, most likely darker and more brooding. Then there will be fans that only interact with that film and not the previous film, and then they will want to see another version of the character, again, darker and brooding than before, and here we go into the endless spiral of getting more darker and more brooding. Whilst talking about convergence culture and participatory culture, Henry Jenkins says, both processing new types of stories and arguments are emerging part within a convergence culture that expresses ideas in ways that exploit opportunity and affordances represented by the new media landscape. Now, this quote might seem irrelevant, however, when talking about Batman in this context, you can say that fans are interacting with the studio itself when talking about announcements for a film. For example, when a new Batman film is announced and it's confirmed to have the Joker in it, people can say that they could want a certain storyline adapted, or they want a certain version of the character to be on screen. Now, although the internet is a new invention, we can see that this idea of participatory culture in films and comic book TV shows has happened in the past. If we look at 1989 Batman, it has elements of a very well-loved story, The Killing Joke, which DC knew their fans loved, so they put it in the film. The next version of the Batman in movies, in his origin, Batman Begins, we can see is very reminiscent of Batman Year One at times, and the new film, that I haven't mentioned too much, Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, is set on one of the most famous and influential stories of Batman, The Dark Knight Returns. So, for a lot of people, their entry point into Batman is not the comics themselves, but the films, meaning that they have a new opportunity to find and go deeper into the Batman mythos, and to find other films and to influence other films later on down the line. What I have talked about has happened to me in the past. I watched the Batman films before I started reading the Batman comics, and I read the Green Arrow comics only after I watched the Green Arrow TV show. Now, I have seen this idea of participatory culture happen on the show Arrow. Although it has not been mentioned, the fandom has made the writers create new storylines, putting characters together that would never have been together in the comics.
Nothing to do with all your strength.
So, to summarise, the characters of both Batman and Joker have gotten darker over time, and this is because of Henry Jenkins' theory of fandom and participatory culture, in that the fans can participate in the writing of the films themselves, making the creators of the films go darker with the characters and go in the way that fans want.